Okay, for today's musing, I want to recognize the Hayes Foundation, established by Marlene and Spencer Hayes, for their extremely generous support of the Academy throughout the year, and particularly they are sponsoring this musing session. Today, as I promised, we will hear from another amazing artist with a completely different story and background and learn what makes him so special. So earlier this year, I called our visual art director, David Reynolds, and I said, we're really looking for just a wonderful visual art muser. Do you have suggestions? He says, I do. He said, I've got like a list of 5 people. And I said, well, send that to me. Let me look. And he did. And I read through all the resumes and looked at everybody's work. And I called him back or emailed or whatever you do nowadays. And I said, David, I said, I think I've got the person that I would love to have here. And he said, and I said, have you? And he said, yes, I do too. And I said, well, mine is Chaz Guest. He said, so is mine. So obviously, we must have had something, going right with this. But there's a reason he was the first pick, because he was just really, the work that we had seen and the bio that we had read just really matched what I think, we want to share with all of you. I believe you're in for a real treat with Chaz. He's one of the country's foremost visual artists whose works are in the mediums of painting and sculpting. The Huffington Post wrote, Chaz Guest is an American artist of profound inventiveness. In reading his resume, it's clear why they said that. Chaz started his journey with a gymnastics scholarship at the university level, and he studied kinesiology and graphic arts. He moved to New York and studied at the Fashion Institute of Technology and became very adept at drawing, and eventually moved to Paris and became a fashion illustrator. And at some point, he picked up painting and began selling his work. I'm sure he'll talk about all this. Today, Barack Obama has 2 of Chaz's works, including a magnificent portrait of Thurgood Marshall, which hung in the White House, and then also one of Barack Obama. Now, a step up from Barack Obama, of course, would be Oprah. She owns a Chaz Guest painting of Maya Angelou as a little girl, and another collector is Angelina Jolie. Chaz painted a portrait of the President of Gambia and has presented his work in major galleries all across not just the United States, but the world, in Europe, in Asia, in Latin America, and like I said, all through our country. I've read a lot of reviews and tried to do as much research as I could on Chaz, and just to share a few comments from different reviews I read. He has the grand ability to tell compelling narratives and highlight underrepresented histories. His style is characterized by expressive brushwork, vibrant colors, and appreciated for its soulful quality. Another writer, his work is recognized for his powerful storytelling, emotional depth, and unique artistic style. I can't wait for you to get to meet Chaz Guest. Let's give him a big round of applause and welcome him to the Tennessee Art.
That was wonderful. I hope I can match all of that. My goodness. It's like, who is that guy? So, how do I start? I like painting more than speaking. So I just wrote a couple of notes down for myself. Okay, so you're wondering, how do I make my way up to this stage? And I am so honored and pleased to be here with you, and thank you so much for the invitation. All the staff, Mr. Bluestein, Savannah, Bill, Bob, I appreciate it very much. So, I'll start by saying, I understand that I'm speaking to a lot of teachers. And they're There's this one professor at the university that I attended, Dr. Howard Fusner. I'm going to start my speaking by talking about him and how he literally lit the fire for the rest of my life so far. And this is really weird because I cannot see anyone, right? It's like, I am so not used to this. Okay. No. I think this is good. Oh, that's much better. Yes. Hi, everybody. That's much better. Thank you so much, because that was weird. Okay. It's like I'm in my room by myself, talking to myself. So, Dr. Howard Fusner, wow. He was a professor at the Southern Connecticut State University. Funny story. I went to college primarily for gymnastics. I wasn't so interested in education. I have to be quite honest with you. I really just wanted to do gymnastics, but that was a great thing that I fell into, and Lord knows it paid off. So, in attending this mind gym, as I call college, because my brain would not have bent to mathematics and all of that. So, because it did, it was really exercised. So, as a gymnast, I dared to major in kinesiology. Way too difficult. So by the time the first year was over, I said, well, all of my life, I used to doodle and draw as a kid of about 10 years old. I never liked asking my mother for money. So I figured that if I draw Fred Flintstone and learn how to draw the Peanuts, I'd get 25 cents here, 50 cents here. And boy, they called me Goldfingers, all of the other kids. My pockets were always jingling with quarters, right? But that was major. I tell you that piece of the story because that way never left me. It just took me a long time to find out that I was a painter. So in that time, as a youthful boy in Philadelphia, I never paid attention to the fact that I had this talent of drawing these cartoons. And then through those years doing gymnastics, I earned a scholarship. This gets me into the university, and I'm doing the gymnastics. I had to get out of kinesiology. Way too difficult. I said to myself, why don't I take a course in graphic design? That might be a bit easier for me. So when I took this major, it was one prerequisite class, and it was called painting, taught by Dr. Howard Fusner. I go into this class, I just fall in love with this old man. He looked like Einstein, thick glasses, and you go into the classroom and he's like, draw, and just full of energy. Oh, I loved him so much. I mean, he'd get me out, yeah. So he did a couple of assignments where he had us paint one painter in 3 different hues. I chose Gauguin. And I remember vividly painting those 3 paintings in blue, one in red, and one in browns, different hues of brown. Today, that sticks with me 40 some odd years later. But here's the thing, I did, now as a gymnast, I was the only non-major in art. This was a major class for painters. Dr. Howard Fusner had us do paintings of I don't know, our favorite bird or something. And I took the old, what was it, the whiskey, that whiskey turkey, turkey whiskey. There you go, wild turkey. And I didn't drink. Thank you for that. So I painted this wild turkey, and I think what got Dr. Howard Fusner is the fact that I tried to use every color in that watercolor kit to the point whereby he used that as a lecture demonstration for the class of painters. So I was really, beside myself. That was the first thing that brought me closer to the idea of painting. The second thing was one day he comes in and he says, Chaz, do you think you can paint this house? And he showed me a photograph of someone's home. Do you think you can do that in watercolor? I said, is it paint? He said, they'll give you $500. Now, I'm in college. This is 1984? Absolutely. So with all of my skills and powers, I was looking at this picture and imitating it on this paper. Come back in a couple of days, and I hand it to him, and he's wowed by that. I earned $500, then another $500. Boom, that kept going on to the fact that I had fresh flowers and grocery food and a water bed. This is in college. So I'm actually trying to spin this story from like a boy in Philadelphia with the same habit of using my hands to make art. But now I have this professor, Dr. Howard Fusner, my teacher, my one and only art teacher, that absolutely lit my fire. Now it's time to retire from gymnastics. I do my last dismount, bam, stick it. And I said that I had a friend who was a photographer. He goes, now what are you going to do? I said, I don't know. You have to figure out something. And at that time, I said, well, I can draw a little bit. He said, why don't you go to FIT? I said, what's FIT? Here's the other teaching thing that lit my fire. He gives me this GQ magazine. I opened the magazine, and there, I want you to Google this if you can. His name was Antonio Lopez, and he was a fashion illustrator. Google it at your own leisure. I opened this magazine, GQ, and it was an advertisement for Missoni. And in your lives, have you ever seen anything that just totally blows your mind? Those illustrations were so colorful and so loose and moving, they just jumped off the page. And I was further lit. I said, you can make money doing this? I said to Jeff, he said, yeah. So I'm off to New York, graduated, off to New York. I get there, and this is how the universe works. I'm going to shift the story to how magical we all are as the gift of being a human being here. We're actually magical. That's the way it's made. It's just whether or not you can vibrate to the rhythm of the universe. Now that sounds kooky, but if you really know what I'm talking about, I am a clear living example of not living as what you see from down on your seat to this man on stage here, but what I am is a living vibration that the universe created. And I can speak to it, and I could manifest anything I want. Well, except for world peace and kind people. But besides that, if there's something that I want, I can ask the universe, because I've elected to try to be the best person that I can be. And it likes that. So I wanted to meet Antonio Lopez. My third day at Fashion Institute of Technology. This man is on the stage doing a lecture demonstration. And I said, okay, I'm on him. So I meet him, wonderful guy. He looks at some drawings I'm trying to do in fashion. He gives me a couple of pointers. This is in New York City. Unfortunately, Antonio dies the same year. And I took his blessings, and I remember him saying, go for it, right? And with that, I got a one-way ticket to Paris. I didn't even know how I was going to get back. But I just trusted how the universe was going to continue to work with me. You ready for this story? You ready? Yes. Okay. So I land in Paris the first time ever. And I think that this drive and this enthusiasm comes from my gymnastics life. Because I was unstoppable. I would put paintings underneath the magazine doors, like Vogue and L'Officiel, and all of these high fashion magazines. I would walk through the night singing Stevie Wonder songs, trying to remember Bob Dylan songs. And I through the night I'm passing out fashion drawings. And here's a story. I'm walking down Rue de Rivoli, and I see this lady with this gigantic bag. And I run across the street, and I ask her, can I help you with your bag? And I grab her bag, and I said, where are you going? And she says, to the hotel. I grab this gigantic bag this lady is carrying. And I get there, put the bag down. She stands up, and she happens to be one of the top models in France on the runway. I had no idea. She calls her friends over. Anyway, make a long story short, she said, would you like to go to this cocktail party? I'm not hardly dressed for a cocktail party, but sure. I go in there, door open. It's a party for Yves Saint Laurent. So the guy at one of the magazines that apparently saw my drawing, he comes over to me now that I look like I'm somebody important. Now I start to understand that layer too. And he said, would you like to do the cover of my magazine? Let me think about it. Absolutely. That's 1 year after Antonio Lopez passed away. And my only wish is that he could have seen that. But that's called manifesting your dreams. This happened in Paris, France. And I was able to get a ticket back to New York. But most importantly, there was a designer by the name of Christian Lacroix. I don't think that drawing's included in this lineup right here, but that was Christian Lacroix's first haute couture runway show in Paris. And that's the same year the Gypsy Kings came out. It was really lit. It was unbelievable. Super dope stuff happened. But what Christian Lacroix said to me after the illustration came out, he goes, you know, you really shouldn't do this because I believe that you're a painter. And you know, all the time, Dr. Howard Fusner's face popped up again. He would draw, you know. All of that started to come together. So I got back to New York with the prayer and wishes of Christian Lacroix, and I literally taught myself how to oil paint by using the Met, the MoMA, and Pearl Paint Art Supply Store, where I bugged every single person that worked there. I knew every brush, every paint, every book, because I had learned some pretty expensive habits in Paris, like wine and chocolate and cookies and food. And I needed to make some money to take care of those habits. And I really, truly fell in love with painting. And it was beyond that. It was a language that I had to learn how to speak. My painting then became like writing a letter or standing up saying some poetry. It became something else other than applying paint onto canvas or whatever I was painting on. It literally became my language. And coincidentally, I stuttered very, very severely when I was young, to the point where I could not speak, actually. I would jump up and down and pull my clothes. I had a very, very severe speech impediment. So I think that also lent itself to being able to communicate with painting. That's what I felt, that's what I believed. So, the first big painting I remember selling was on the street of New York. But before I tell you that short story, and hope that it inspires, I will tell you that I had to make a way out of no way in New York City. So I slept on a roof there in Soho for about a month. It was summertime, and it was absolutely beautiful. I would never change that for anything in the world. Because what I said to my head and my spirit, I said, I'm now a Native American. That's what I said. And this roof here is a mountain, and there is the sky. So there was nothing in between me, this soul, and this mind. There was nothing in between but me and the stars. That sounds wacky, but it's the truth. Because after I came down off of that roof, my gift of manifesting things were at its all-time most powerful. So I saved my money by selling little cards of my drawings and stuff on the street, enough to pay for the apartment right underneath the roof there on Sullivan Street in Soho. And I moved in there, a very tiny place, and here I am painting so much that now my place is completely full of paintings and a little bed. And I move on now to the sidewalk, which became my studio. And I'm painting, I remember I was painting this one painting of Charlie Parker. And I had my ear things on, and I have to sell this painting. I remember saying, I have to sell this painting. Are we good with time? Yes. Okay, because this is getting good. So I'm sitting there on my little artist's little stool, and I'm painting with my music on of Charlie Parker, and this guy taps me on the shoulder, and he goes, that's a fantastic painting you're doing. I said, thank you, put my ear things back on, started painting more. He taps me again, are you selling that painting? And I go, maybe. And I start painting again, and he taps me, and he goes, I want to buy that painting. I said, it's $5,000. I just made something up because I saw it on West Broadway. I saw that price on West Broadway, so I just said it. He says, okay. Wow. I go, this is without a plan. This is just thinking. This is my 10-year-old entrepreneurial self from those Fred Flintstones. You see? See how I'm tying this story together? And he goes, I said to him without a plan, give me $500 now and pay me later. I took him upstairs. This is my little studio. Came back down. Fine. With that, here's my phone number, blah, 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 all of that stuff. I took that $500. I said, I have to find a gallery. I'm walking down Spring Street in Soho, and I hear my name, Chaz Guest, and I turn around, there's this tall guy standing there. I don't know him from Adam's House Cat. And he goes, you were one of A.B. Grossfeld's gymnasts, weren't you? I was like, wow. So here's where my gymnastics now ties into my later life, manifesting. So John, yeah, I remember you, yeah. So John, what are you doing on Spring Street? Well, I'm opening this art gallery right here. I got $500 in my pocket. And I go, John, can I pay you this $500 to borrow your basement since you're still working on, opening it up? He said, oh, you can borrow the basement. I put all my paintings down in there. That $500, I what? Wine and cheese, candy. I was copying the galleries with that $500. And here the guy's name was Ricardo Bovelli. He comes running in the gallery. Hey, where's my painting? I don't want you to sell my painting, blah, 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 blah. And he peels off $4,500 in front of everybody, cash. So that sparked everybody. You know how that worked. The first mouse have to go through the hole, right? I sold every painting in the place. Yeah. Always thinking of Professor Howard Fusner, right? And John said, I tried to give John 2,000 of those dollars. He said, just keep your money. Only thing I ask is that you have a contract with me for 3 years at least. And that's how I began my career as a painter. And that's a hell of a story of manifestation. However, let me go back just a little bit. You remember when I walked in that Yves Saint Laurent party and he asked me to do the cover and blah, blah, blah and all of that? So I wanted to finish that story by saying, as hard as I work, my hard work wasn't really doing it for me. Not really. What was doing it for me was doing that good deed. Sometimes doing good deeds eclipse the hard work. Yeah. I'll leave that there. So, this is Chaz now having to exit the illustrative marks inspired by the Antonio Lopez to finding my own and unique technique and relying on my life to usher a new, unique way of painting. And gosh, we don't have enough time to tell you about the calligraphy and the Japanese ink and all of that. Perhaps there's a couple of interviews floating around because it's a fantastic story of it's a cultural thing. Like I was very, very partial to the lines of calligraphy, particularly Japanese sumi drawing and Japanese calligraphy. And somewhat like Jackson Pollock, spilling the paint and drips on the canvas there. And so now he's introduced to his new style of painting. That happened to me in Japan in 1997 on stage with this ink and this jazz band. And it taught me a few things: to move without thinking and just rely more on the spiritual and the pulse of a naturalness, more of a natural way of moving through your paintings, more so than thinking. Very unschool-like. This is some dude teaching himself how to paint. So I wouldn't recommend taking it to your class. You'll have somebody doing some, you never know. So anyway. Oh, it was included. Yeah, that was the drawing I did for Christian Lacroix. And one reason why I got out of that thing also was the fact that they cropped my darn arm off. Yeah. So from that, now I'm now teaching myself how to draw with ink very fast without thinking, and then apply the oil later. And of course, I had to tell my own personal stories because coming up in the museum world, I wasn't seeing, it wasn't inclusive enough for me, for everyone really. It was just, you're just seeing one hue of people, one way of life, or if it's something negative, we'll kind of pop up for you. But basically, I had to tell the story with all of my strength and all of my might of these people that are a very important part of our American history. And I wanted to actually paint them and sort of paint the dignity that a lot of people, a lot of Americans don't know. And so since I was very, very close to my grandmother and grandfather, my grandparents on both sides, and I know much about my life, I wanted to tell the story of these enslaved people with dignity, people just like us. And so here was a story that I wanted to paint of this woman named Pearl. And then her husband actually picked so much cotton that he actually bought her a pair of pearl earrings. So this is Pearl, Pearl's Pearl, that's called. And this is Ran Free. Now this is painted on an upside down cotton flag actually. And it's Jemima, it says up there, because Jemima was sold for $300. And I wanted to paint she and her sister. This is called Ran Free. So her sister ran from one plantation, that she was in another plantation, and they meet with this dearing hug. And she's looking to the future. By the way, one of my professors at Southern Connecticut, this was the other professor of art history. Art history is so important. Oh my gosh. So this guy's name was Dr. Levine, David Levine. It was 1983. Well, David Levine made the mistake of introducing me to art history, that's for sure. But I'd sit there, and when he put a painting by Bonnard or Cézanne, or these amazing painters, Gauguin I mentioned earlier, Van Gogh, Picasso, I would sit there to remember it, I would sketch it. And then he'd ask me, and I remember it verbatim. So with your students, if you're not doing it already, there's something that happens magically. When you're looking at the painting, and if you draw it or sketch it, you're sketching it in your memory, especially if you love it. Because this palette is the same palette as one artist I love was Giorgio de Chirico. And he did one painting called the Love Song. We say most of the time Giorgio de Chirico, but it's actually Giorgio de Chirico. Okay, so this is one painting that started my whole quest to tell the story of the Buffalo Soldiers. And coincidentally, this is how I came up to my superhero that I created. My son, my youngest son, one day, I think this was 10 years ago, we were in the toy store, and he was looking for a toy, and he wanted a toy that looked like him. So he was looking for a falcon, one of the melanated superheroes. and they were fresh out. I said, well, I think they only made 20 anyway. So, but this kid, about 10 years old, because I was so connected to my father too, in family life. Those little eyes of his looked at. He said, "Well, Dad, why don't you create your own superhero?" Wow, for you to trust that I can do that? Let's see what happens. Again, like the universe working with you, the next morning, I had the whole image, the whole story, everything the next morning, like it was a gift that I didn't create. It felt like it was given to me. So I have some graphic novels out there. You can take a gander through those at your leisure. But it's really funny. When I look at a painting like this man, okay, wait, so let me go back. Oh, no, okay. Here, I borrowed from Akira Kurosawa. You could never see it. I actually hid it very well. For those who don't know, Akira Kurosawa was in history is one of the greatest filmmakers of all time. So if you're not familiar with his movies, he did Ran, The Seven Samurai, Kagensha, and one great one called Ikuru, that means to live. If you haven't seen his movies, I would say you really should Google it up. He's really fantastic. So this is one of his Japanese characters, Mifune. But I took his energy and placed it in this one soldier. And here in parts of it, you can see the ink, where I draw very fast the ink, not measuring, not thinking, just putting down the energy there. I've never seen it this way. I really like this painting. I've never seen it. His eyes is the eye. Yeah, it really happened there. Wow. Okay, Chaz. This is the younger character in the same movie, Seven Samurai. He was very young. He was the youngest. If you ever see Seven Samurai, you can. So this is where I took his energy and put it there. This is Jokes. He was one of the samurai too, but now he's a buffalo soldier. Okay, then I moved on to wanting to tell this to kind of merge cultures. This was my time in Japan, where I was imagining the little girls that I grew up with in Philadelphia. I was sitting next to this beautiful young, they were teens. And when you're a teen geisha, you're called the Maiko-san. So they're under like 15. She was absolutely impeccably, there was not the smidgen of an inch off in her kimono. Makeup was perfect. And I just thought, gosh, what if those little girls I grew up with had this experience, and vice versa? So there I began to think about sharing our likenesses instead of our differences. And I came up with this one collection of paintings called African Geishas. The importance of exploring in your teaching. There was this one book called it's called Picasso, the Creator and the Destroyer. There I learned, reading that book, I learned how to paint eyes. And I dared to mix Beaster ink with titanium white. Work like a charm, because it pushes my eyes back. Can you see that? You see where her eyes sort of like are recessed? Yeah, and so that was a trick that I picked up from Monsieur Picasso. Again, sharing cultures. This actually belonged to the head of Netflix, Mr. Ted Sarandos, and his wife, Nicole Avant. Yeah, they had their home was in the New York Times, so that was that day. Okay, and then before I get to that, okay, so now I'm painting and I'm getting gallery recognition, doing my thing like that. In between all of that, the decades are going by. And I think of Dr. Howard Fusner, my professor, my only one and only professor at Southern Connecticut State University. And I go, I know if he's alive, he's 100 and something. But let me try anyway. So in my efforts, I found his son, who was living somewhere in California. And not to my surprise, Dr. Howard Fusner had passed away. But I said, are any of his paintings available? Can I buy one of his paintings? And so fortunately, his son was in charge of his estate, and I was actually to acquire one big landscape that I'm so happy for, that I hang in my home now. And I know, when I'm more abreast to the painting life and my education of painters, I can see how much he loved Poussin and Cézanne. There was another one he used to talk about, Matisse. Oh my goodness, he loved them so much. I think I saw the love of painting through this man's eyes, through those thick glasses too. I could see his pupils. When he talked about Cézanne, he really loved Cézanne. And now as an older person as I am, I can see Cézanne's influence all over his work, that I hang this painting in my home. So, and coincidentally, without even thinking about it, some of my palette is just like Howard Fusner's, without even thinking about it. It just sticks with you, you see. So, here we have now, I'm going into the New York life. Back to New York City after California with my first show with, if you ever heard of Julian Schnabel, his son is Vito Schnabel. And Vito has a magnificent gallery in New York City now. And so 2 years ago, he comes into my studio in LA, and he said he saw one painting that I did. He said, "Can you paint 8 of these paintings?" I said, "Let me think about it." Yes, I can paint 8 of these paintings, yes. So I took some time and created these paintings, and we had a marvelous and spectacular exhibition in New York City, my welcoming back to New York City. And you could tell by the success of it, that blew my mind completely. Because if you're starting and sleeping on a roof in New York, and then you go back and you're in the New York Times, can you get it? Can you fill in the blanks there? That's a lot of story. So this is the second page here. That's the gallery. And I chose to paint a friend of mine. This is right before he passed away. He was a great actor, Michael K. Williams. And he came into my studio, and he wanted to be a part of the superhero is in the works of being a movie, a silver screen movie. So Michael, being the great actor, unfortunately, that he was, because he passed away, he came to my studio, and he said, "Do you think there's a part in your film I could fit in?" I said, "Sit down, let me have you draw you and paint you and see what I can come up with." So I did that, and unfortunately, this man actually passed away a week later. Bad fentanyl drug overdose. Was very, very, very crushing. But so I wish he could have seen that in another way, So in this time, you're now meeting wonderful people of other artistic endeavors. And in this case, this amazing lady here saw my work. I think, wait a second. Oh yeah, this was the first painting that she acquired. And it touched me only in many ways, but I know that someone of this stature has seen everything in the world, have been invited to see the greatest art, the greatest everything, food, chocolate, wine. And for her to look at my work, it really meant a lot. And people like her because I know that they have seen and heard everything. And so they double back and see your stuff and say, "Wow, that's something I'd like to have." And then later she asked me to do a portrait of her daughter, which was in London at the Portrait Museum. Yeah, and so back to this. This is at Vito Schnabel's gallery show, one of the paintings that were available. This is Michael K. Williams, the model at the time. I was infusing a lot of the Japanese. I don't know if you can see it, but I was really working on infusing a very storied Akira Kurosawa feeling with this work. Again, it really is something to see paintings from where I'm standing that they're just here all your life. And now they're just here. Because this guy over here, he's in a whole story by himself. Isn't he? And he's tired. I love this guy in the middle. Yeah, he's thinking of it. Can you get with him? He's thinking of the whole deal, right? He's thinking of the whole, creating stories. These are fun. This gives me the idea. This is Julian here. That's Vito. This is at the show we hung, and we're ready to get it on. If you're not familiar with Julian Schnabel's work, he's also a great filmmaker. He did Belle and the Butterfly, Before Night Falls. He did a wonderful film on Van Gogh with Willem Dafoe. And Basquiat. He did the Basquiat movie in 1996. If you haven't seen any of those movies, you won't be wasting your time. They're really great. They're really great movies. Okay, this is a better look at the Michael K. Williams piece. I think, Julian was so pleased with this painting here that he put Martin Scorsese on the phone, FaceTime, so he could see the painting. And we had a chat about this painting. That's a high point. Brilliant minds like that, you want to hear their feedback. Are we good with time?
About 3 minutes.
Okay. That's perfect. This is a huge painting, actually, by the way. And, I think because my life as a gymnast and kinesiology, I know how the body parts bend because everything hurt as a gymnast. So I have a relationship with how far it is from here to here, and here to here, and here to here. And, everything was hurt. So I have a full-on relationship with how to depict it in that. So if you're painting a hand, you're in a different relationship with a hand because you know exactly how it works. Okay, this is something I did with Maria Callas. If you haven't seen her film, Maria Callas is a beautiful film. But I did these of Maria Callas very fast. I was so pleased that they were used for the Hollywood Reporter. And then this was very courageous. She now has to draw on a silk dress. If you touch the silk, you know it's very expensive. And I had no idea what I was going to do. So I wound up doing an orchestra on that. But this is just the challenge of just, investigating other surfaces. It really makes your brain, as a teacher, right, if you put a piece of silk in front of your students and you ask them to draw with an ink brush, and when they put that on the silk and it spreads out and you freak out. But during that freak out, your brain goes into a certain mode where, what are you going to do? And it's a great thing to live in survival mode. Yeah, you know what I mean? This is great. So that's what this did. I was in survival mode doing this dress. And there it is. There's a whole orchestra. It was for John Baptiste and his wonderful wife. Yeah, that was pretty difficult. Okay, you can't really appreciate this like here, but it's a huge canvas, and it's covered with Japanese sumi ink. And I just leave the eyes to the view. It's called the vision. So this is the vision of the first amusement park. This is on view at the Slag RX Gallery in Chelsea right now. This will be seen at the Armory Art Fair in New York in September, the beginning of September. This, along with other new paintings, will be seen there. If you fancy flying to New York City, see this one in real life. RX Slag is the gallery. This is also included in the show that I just had there. And this is going back to the time I told you when I was 10. Yeah, those drawings of Fred Flintstone and Charlie Brown bought me those checkers right there. As a game called Scully we used to play on the street. And this is going back now to my history. I can tell you, but this is actually a picture. I have a tiny little picture, all beat up, black and white, old, of my great-grandfather, Johnny Philpott. So I wanted to paint him. He had on overalls in the picture, but I wanted to paint him in his Sunday best. with that vermilion, beautiful color, with yellow ochre on the bottom of that white, and titanium white, and then a little lead white, which is very dangerous, by the way. But that's why those artists didn't live long. They didn't read the instructions. But you got to stay away. And the vermilion's dangerous too. But so this is a mixture that I did. It's a wonderful what you can do with. You can't imagine if you take some cerulean blue and some some cadmium orange and cerulean blue and a little titanium white and mix it. And that's a gray that can make. That's fascinating. So there's a plethora of grays that you can achieve. And all of that color mixing, it's just a lot of fun, because that really resonates with me, that one gray that I came up with there for his jacket. Let me go this way. This is another one, painting that's in the same. I had this one in my own collection, but I just made it available again in the later years. But this is something, She's Got His Back. And this is actually coming off of my mom and my uncle. That's my mom at the age of about, 8? And she had his back, you see, because he was a bit soft, and she used to wrestle goats. So she was quite strong. That's in the South. So I love this painting. No one knows that story. Everyone knows now. But I guess you can tell by the hairdo what date it is, in that truck there. But that's a very special painting for me. This is my wife, Yuko, and this is my 2 dealers in New York City at Slag RX Gallery, and in Paris. That's Eric in Paris. There are 2 galleries. So, and this was in the Brooklyn Rail. My stories of ice cream. That's the street I grew up on at 10 years old. And Mrs. Softy with those pops there. Double Dutch. And I love this kind of ink drawing because it looks like a thought, a past thought. I really love that whole thing there. This is the gallery in New York and Paris. Et voilà. Are we done? You know, I thank you so much. Thank you so very, very much. Yeah. Thank you, guys. You're beautiful. Thank you so much. Yeah.